So, older person from the prior generation, what is the point of life? The point of life? What you mean? I mean this. Life. All of the effort I put into pleasing others because I don't want people to be mad at me. The effort I put into making sure I don't disappoint people. I need to take care of myself. The effort I put into living a life that looks like everybody says it should look like. All of this effort is work. Not to mention my actual work, which I hate, by the way. All of it is making me unhappy. In every area of life, I'm working to work, to essentially satisfy others. What is the point of all this? Oh, that's what you mean. Well, do I get anything out of this? You'll probably work yourself into an early grave for everyone else. So what you're telling me is that my life is only going to amount to this? I am enduring my growing unhappiness by suppressing my desires to make others happy? My life is only worth this? I am only worth this? Welcome to real life, baby. Have you ever stopped and thought, why am I living this way? Who am I really doing this for? Years ago, I asked myself these questions, and they led me to a truth that changed everything. I had to give myself permission to be me. That little existential crisis you heard was inspired by an actual conversation that I had with an older woman years ago. Let me tell it, my whole life has been one long existential crisis, but I'm still here. Anyway, during this period, I was frustrated in life. I was a young single mother with small children and juggling work and the activities I was trying to keep my children in to keep them out of trouble. But I think I was more frustrated with the physical and mental energy I was expending at work, church, pretty much every area of my life, to be pleasant at all times, to satisfy others, when in actuality I wasn't feeling pleasant. I was feeling angry, but the pressures of the societal playbook called for me to pretend to be happy. All I wanted, no, what I needed was some rest and to take care of myself. But nobody wants to hear your problems. The only thing that's going to do is remind them of their problems, and it's going to make it harder for them to pretend to be happy. So it was like the world didn't care what I needed. It just felt like I was giving, and the world was just taking. There are so many societal and cultural pressures that can make us suppress parts of ourselves. For me, a couple of those pressures came from working and church. The list is a lot longer, but these were the bigger pressures. As it relates to work on several jobs, in fact, for all of my working life, there was the pressure of trying to not be seen as the stereotypical angry black woman. The black woman that's deemed a troublemaker. With my richly melanated self, I knew to make sure I didn't come off in that way. Because I knew this, I took precautions to avoid being blown up in the quote-unquote professional minefield, as it were, that awaited me every time I went to work. So I made sure while I was at work to always wear my fake smile and be as pleasant as possible. Always wearing a mask of good nature. For years, I mastered the fine art of pretending everything was fine. Flashing a cheerful smile so I wouldn't be labeled the angry black woman. Because, being human is just too much for corporate America to handle. I tried to always be accommodating, never complaining when I was asked to work overtime. This was exhausting, but I think this kept me from having many experiences that would put me in a position to be accused of being the angry black woman. I saw it happening to my other melanated co-workers. I could see the difference in how they were treated and how certain others were treated on the job. Like I said, I didn't have many experiences, but I had a few, even though I was practically walking on eggshells to not have them. But it was bound to happen in the society we live in. I remember when a supervisor tried to step to me sideways or crazy and went overboard with letting me know that they were the boss. In an attempt to not come off as the angry black woman, I had to ignore that lump that was growing in my throat from rightful anger as she was speaking. I had to just smile through it. However, soon after, she received a resignation letter from me because what you're not going to do is talk to me or treat me like I'm a child. So that's how I would handle those situations. I wouldn't advise anyone else to handle the situation in that way, but that's how I did it. I knew me speaking up for myself was not going to be seen as someone standing up for themselves, like any self-respecting person would do. It would be seen as me being angry. It would be seen as disrespect for authority and or seen as me not being grateful for even being allowed to even have this job. Say what now? If groveling at your feet is what you want, then you won't get it from me. Because I know that I am good at my job and I am a hard worker. In my eyes, that should count for something. In the church, it was no different. Pleasing God seemed to mean saying yes to everything, even when I was overwhelmed. Like at work, I felt trapped by expectations that didn't align with who I was. You would think that burnout was the unspoken 11th commandment. So when I got to the emotional space where I was becoming more and more unhappy in Christianity, where church was not aligning with the person I wanted to become or was becoming, my job was my out as it relates to church and Christianity. But by 2015, I had reached my limit with the workforce. I was feeling like I was working jobs wherein I ended up unhappy because I didn't feel that the job valued me in spite of the sacrificing I felt I did for those jobs. I was tired of feeling used by the workforce and in 2015 retired from state government. So the lesson that I learned in this period was that no matter how hard I tried to be a person I was not, no matter how hard I tried to present myself as not being the angry black woman, no matter how much I sacrificed for a job by working overtime or extra shifts, no matter how much I pushed aside my desire to fill a role at church or suppressed personal desires by not saying no when I knew I needed to, no matter how many times I talked myself into going against my desires and beliefs to make others happy, I would be the one to end up unhappy every time. My turning point was not all at once. I came to a place in 2015 where I had it. It was my breaking point. But that feeling had been growing for years. Years of pushing aside my desires and needs had worn me down. When I started working as a correctional officer in 2009, the overnight shift, I was able to use that as an excuse not to go to church because I knew I would be tired. Leaving my job and stepping back from church was not an overnight decision. It was the culmination of years of inner turmoil. Just being an ambitious, hopeful black woman on any job who at one time was a little more confident, I had to worry about being compared to the negative narrative that is believed about black women. I didn't want to be judged based on that belief. I mean, how was I going to move up the ladder with that kind of negativity looming over my head, being the person who's hard to work with? So with wanting to avoid that kind of judgment came fear. Fear of losing my job or not being able to find another job because the job that let me go might not give me a good recommendation. All of it amounted to fear of rejection. That fear of being left out in the cold with no way to make it, no way to survive. All of it chipped away at my confidence. If I didn't have a job or couldn't find a job, how would I look to other people? How would I be seen by others? I'll tell you how I would have been seen. I would have been seen as a failure in this society. I would have been seen as something less than. I would have been seen as someone who can't cut it. And with church, I didn't want to say no to tasks I was asked to do because I didn't want to appear ungrateful for God sacrificing his son for my sins or for the blessings I had. Surely that attitude wouldn't be pleasing to the Almighty, wherein if I had stopped and thought it through, being that God is supposedly all-knowing, then surely he would know that me saying no when asked to do various tasks was not coming from a place of being ungrateful, but from a place of being overwhelmed. And surely being that he is a loving God, he will understand that. So what does that say about this God? But that's the thing. When you are pressured to be a certain way or to be someone you are not, and that certain way does not match the beliefs and values you have inside, then it causes an inner battle, an inner struggle that's hard to deal with emotionally because that inner struggle is so uncomfortable. You feel like you're lying to yourself. I suppose giving yourself permission looks different for everybody. For me, giving myself permission to be me looks like setting boundaries, not being afraid to make others disappointed or angry by saying no when I need to. Giving myself permission to be me looks like not sacrificing for a workforce that would never appreciate me, because it turns out it's not sustainable. Who knew? Giving myself permission to be me looks like not caring if I'm seen as weak or less than by others for not working a traditional job. Giving myself permission to be me looks like not apologizing for embracing the things that make me happy, even if they are things that society has deemed not becoming of me. I determine what's becoming of me. I determine who I become. And I have to admit that choosing to do this gives me a new sense of freedom. And freedom is one value that I've had for a long time, but have never truly experienced. So it feels strange. It feels scary. It's like I took my foot off the brakes of life. It's like I broke from the chains that society or culture or religion had on me. It's like being a new bike rider and riding the bike for a while and then taking a chance without the training wheels. But I wear that scary feeling because nothing is more important than being true to who I am. If you've been living your life for everyone else, this is your sign to stop. What's the point of a life where you don't feel free to be yourself? You don't need anyone's permission to be you except your own. And as I have stated before, living authentically, for me, this struggle is real. But trying to do so allows me to live with myself and sleep at night. So what's one thing you've been holding back on because of what others might think? Drop it in the comments. I love to read them. Thanks for watching. See you next time.